Do you ever push yourself to have conversations with those who disagree with you? How do you react when you hear someone that has strong views that oppose yours? Are you even able to be friends with people that have different perspectives than you? Do you actually believe what you're saying? How can you be serious? I can't even have this conversation with you right now. This kind of language is becoming more and more common. What if these interactions are what makes us as divided as we are? What if we actually listen, as opposed to argue, and try to learn about different perspectives, even if they make no sense to you? Hello, my name is Jackson, and I'm a 16-year-old American living in Luxembourg. Every year, I go back to the US to visit friends and family. On my latest trip there, I got my hair cut. When talking to this barber, I mentioned that I was from California. Upon saying this, he became angry and aggravated, almost yelling at me about California's liberal governor and how he despised him because he's a hypocrite, has ridiculous policies, and COVID restrictions that are too strict. This really stood out to me as I started asking myself questions that I've never asked myself before. Since when did the state you come from cause you a problem? Do I need to be more careful next time? Most importantly, I asked, how did we get here as a country, as a community? This barbershop experience certainly bothered me, but even worse, similar heated interactions were happening in my own family. Lately, whenever I have conversations with my grandpa, who I respect and am really close to, be it about news or current events, we would get so heated, only thinking our way is right, that the conversations would end in anger. I would think, how can you be serious? How can you believe this? I would never even try to understand because my thinking was clouded by my anger. So the new family rule was we wouldn't discuss these topics together in hopes of avoiding conflict. But this decision of avoiding controversial topics didn't sit well with me. How are we supposed to become effective future leaders if we can't have intellectual and respectful conversations with those who disagree with us? The more I thought about this, the more I knew how vast of an issue this was, but I still didn't know how to fix it. This year, I decided to join my school TEDx club, hoping to learn more about public speaking. The club turned out to be a place where great ideas are shared, and even more importantly, these controversial topics are discussed. And this is where I learned the importance of being surrounded by those who don't always agree with you, and it has also helped me grow as a teen and a person. In the club, we have heated arguments, we agree, we disagree, we value every opinion, everyone listens, we can get frustrated, but we don't get angry at one another. We remain respectful and accept that everyone doesn't always have the same views. Although these conversations in the club were great, I noticed that many of my peers lacked a diversified view on the topics, just like me. We were all well informed about our own side of the story, but we lacked an understanding of the other side. I then asked myself if I had ever really tried to listen to those who had different opinions than me. Have I ever had a decent conversation with those who don't believe in climate change, those who don't believe systemic racism exists in the US, or those who think COVID is a hoax? No, I never had. Why haven't I? What sources do I read from? How do I inform myself? Do I look at different sources or always the same ones? Upon reflection, I realized I always looked at the same sources when trying to inform myself. And because I looked at the same sources with the same ideology and opinions, even if I would question myself about my views, I would do it with those who think like me, and they would confirm my views. I would never get to see the other perspective, and that is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, or recall information in a way that supports your pre-existing beliefs or theories. And the danger of confirmation bias is that it makes us less inclined to engage with information that challenges our perspectives. And even when we do see information that we don't agree with, it can cause us to interpret this information in a way that supports our existing beliefs. Now let me ask you, How often do you look for evidence that supports your views, as opposed to evidence that contradicts your views? How often do you seek out people that don't share your beliefs? As young people, unfortunately, we spend a lot of our time on social media, and for lots of us, our biases are shaped by what we read and see on these platforms. A question that I ask myself while on social media is how is it that I only get fed information that aligns with my views? I found the answers after watching The Social Dilemma, a documentary about the effect of social media. The reason I always saw information that aligned with my perspectives is because these companies use algorithms to feed you only information that you're likely to agree with. This is because social media platforms earn most of their revenue on advertisements. Therefore, their main goal is to keep users on the platform. In 2020, Facebook earned 98% of its revenue on advertisements. The fact that we are constantly being fed information that we support is causing us to be even more narrow-minded. When we then hear someone with a different opinion or view on a topic, our brains can't process it, and we may think their view is absurd. This is increasingly important as more and more people are getting their information from social media. According to a recent Pew Research Center report, 53% of Americans got their news from social media. I realized this is what was happening to me. My Google newsfeed, social media, everything. It all came from the same perspective. So I decided to change my habits and read from sources I wouldn't normally read from, watch different news channels, all to understand why people like my grandpa and that barber believe what they believe. I can still disagree with their point of view, but at least I can try to understand their reasoning, as opposed to putting them in a box and perpetuating this growing polarization. But as I read from different sources, I became even more confused. Different sources would constantly contradict each other, and it was hard to know what was real or fake. What should I believe? This became an important question to me as I was determined to know who or what I could trust. As I read and watched news on issues such as COVID and immigration in the US, I realized the importance of differentiating facts, because some news commentators can interpret what is happening and feed it to you in the way they want to understand it, which doesn't always reflect reality. This growing division and polarization gave me a sense of urgency to do something, as the future felt frightening if action wasn't taken. Our generation needs to take action. We, all of us, need to take action. But what can we do? First of all, we need to check our own biases and be aware of this growing polarization and how it affects us. In my research, I came across an app that helps you do this. It's a news app that has all of the major sources from the far left to the far right. It tracks the articles you read and alerts you if you're only reading on one side, so you can adjust your habits. This was especially important for me, as it made me aware of my own biases, which pushed me to broaden my knowledge and ingest a range of views and perspectives. Broadening my sources has helped me understand my grandpa, that barber, and other people I used to just dismiss. Now that I can better understand both sides, I can find better ways to communicate with them. Whether we will be able to find common ground, I'm not sure. But at least I can try to have a decent conversation with them without being hostile. And if the older generation sees that us young people are more poised and can hold a decent conversation with them, maybe they'll also be open to understanding different perspectives. It is vital that our generation takes action, that we question our biases, that we take time to verify our sources, that we realize what news commentators say isn't always necessarily true, and that we understand we are smart enough to form our own opinions based on facts and verifiable research. We are tomorrow's leaders, and we owe it to ourselves, our community, and the future generations to break down this division and polarization circle. We are smart and resilient enough to tackle global issues, and we can only do that if we're able to work with those who fundamentally disagree with us. And yes, you can disagree and dislike someone's ideology without hating the person. So next time you hear someone who believes and advocates for what you think is wrong, instead of saying or thinking, "I can't believe what you're saying," or "How can you be serious?" Instead, Be curious and wonder why they feel so strongly about this topic. Engage to understand, not to argue, then engage to bring people together, to solve problems, and work together to make the world a better place. Thank you.